On the morning of September 17, 1944, at exactly 6:15, Captain George Jones pressed himself against the jagged coral of Peleliu's shoreline, his uniform drenched in sweat and seawater as he watched his Marines fall one after another to an enemy they could not see, killers hidden somewhere deep in the dripping tangle of the jungle canopy above. At 31, Jones was a hardened company commander who had survived 12 island campaigns, each one a lesson in brutality, improvisation, and endurance, but nothing in his experience prepared him for an enemy like this. Japanese snipers so expertly concealed that their shots seemed to come from the trees themselves, from branches, from shadows, from the very air. In the first 48 hours of the assault, Sergeant Major Hiroshi Tanaka's elite sniper battalions had claimed 23 Marine lives without a single confirmed Japanese casualty, because every palm tree had been turned into a fortress, every frond into camouflage, every trunk a sniper's tower. Many of Tanaka's men had lashed themselves to branches with thick hemp rope so that even death would not loosen their grip or drop them from their perches. Jones winced as another shot echoed, a crisp, whip-like crack from the Arisaka Type 99, followed by the dull, sickening thump of a bullet striking flesh. Another Marine collapsed. His men were pinned, terrified to move, scanning the canopy not for shapes. There were no shapes, but for the faintest flicker of motion that never appeared twice in the same place. Traditional Marine tactics, rifle fire, aggressive advance, suppress and assault, were meaningless against marksmen firing from 40 feet above the jungle floor from positions invisible to even the sharpest eyes. It was then that Lieutenant Joseph Walker approached with a suggestion so wild that it bordered on insanity. Use the 40mm Bofors anti-aircraft guns still mounted on their landing craft offshore, guns meant for Japanese aircraft but sitting idle because no Japanese aircraft had shown up. Marines were trained to counter snipers with precision rifles, not anti-aircraft cannons. But as Jones stared across the killing field, he realized that his men were dying because they were fighting the wrong kind of war entirely. The enemy didn't fear skill or precision. They feared overwhelming force that rewrote the rules altogether. 2 days earlier, the Marines had landed at 0800 on September 15th, only to have their advance stall 300 yards inland because the jungle itself had become a weapon. Sergeant Major Tanaka had turned the canopy into a three-dimensional battlefield that defied every American manual. His snipers weren't hiding among the trees. They were a part of them, wrapped in living foliage, bound into position with rope, impossible to see from below. Their Type 97 sniper rifles, with an effective range of 400 meters, dominated the beachhead when fired from elevation. Jones observed Lance Corporal Martinez attempt to sprint between two palms. The shot came instantly, clean and efficient, dropping Martinez without so much as a cry. The sniper had already shifted or vanished into the canopy. The Japanese had learned from Guadalcanal and Tarawa that static bunkers could be annihilated by American firepower, so Tanaka abandoned fixed positions and built a network of mobile snipers capable of striking from any angle and disappearing before return fire could be directed. Each sniper carried only 20 rounds, but each round was meant to kill a single Marine, a psychological terror that weighed heavier than the casualties themselves. The Marines' doctrine, aggressive movement under covering fire, collapsed when the enemy held the high ground in every direction. The Arisaka rifles could punch through layers of palm fronds. The M1 Garand lost accuracy when fired upward into dense vegetation. And so the Americans were trapped, firing blindly into trees while death rained from above. Lieutenant Walker, studying the problem from near the waterline, concluded that infantry weapons were fundamentally useless in this environment. What the Marines needed was something that could destroy the elevated firing positions entirely, even when they couldn't identify the exact sniper. He realized the answer was already present: the 40mm Bofors cannons mounted on the LCMs offshore. Designed in Sweden to destroy aircraft moving hundreds of miles per hour, the Bofors fired explosive shells at 850 meters per second, each shell powerful enough to shred metal or pulverize vegetation within a 10-meter blast radius. Against jungle canopy snipers, they would be catastrophic. Sergeant John Miller, an experienced Bofors gunner from earlier campaigns, quickly grasped the potential. A short burst of 10 to 15 shells could obliterate a tree and anything hidden within. Elevation wasn't an issue. The guns could angle up to 85 degrees, and their full 360-degree traverse meant they could target any sector of the island from offshore. The challenge was coordination. Forward observers needed to identify suspicious trees and radio coordinates to the gun crews. With this system, a fire mission could be executed in under 30 seconds. Instead of precision duels, the Marines would saturate entire trees with explosive force, rewriting battlefield logic. The first test came at 14:30 on September 18th. Private First Class Rodriguez was shot retrieving ammunition near a towering breadfruit tree. Walker immediately called in the coordinates. On LCM-7, Miller loaded high-explosive rounds, adjusted his elevation to 45 degrees, and fired a 3-round burst. The first shell struck midway up the trunk, detonating in a violent explosion that tore through branches and bark. The second shell shredded the canopy. The third obliterated the sniper, Corporal Masaru Yoshida, killing him instantly and collapsing much of the tree. Jones watched as the once impenetrable sniper nest was reduced to splinters and smoke. For the first time in days, the Marines felt hope. The psychological effect was immediate. The invulnerable specters haunting the treetops were suddenly mortal, vulnerable to overwhelming firepower. The Japanese felt the shift just as sharply. Tanaka's sniper doctrine hinged entirely on elevation, camouflage, and mobility. But the Bofors bombardment rendered every tree a death trap. By sunset, the 3 Bofors guns had destroyed 47 suspected positions using 230 rounds. Sniper fire ceased almost entirely. Many surviving Japanese marksmen abandoned their posts or retreated inland. Tanaka watched from his command post as 6 of his sniper nests vanished under explosive fury. Of his original 63 elite snipers, only 17 reported back by nightfall, many wounded. Their psychological devastation was severe. The Japanese Sniper Corps, once proud, feared, and elite, had been broken in a single afternoon. On September 19th, Tanaka surveyed the wreckage: splintered trunks, scorched roots, cratered earth. His 18 months of preparation destroyed in hours. He convened his officers inside a cave sheltered from artillery fire. For the first time, they admitted that the Americans had nullified their most effective tactic. Lieutenant Watanabe suggested moving snipers to ground-level caves, but this crippled their visibility and eliminated the very advantage that made them deadly. The Japanese were caught in a strategic trap repeated across the Pacific. American adaptability always outpaced Japanese innovation. When Japan introduced a new tactic, the U.S. military answered with superior technology and overwhelming firepower. Snipers could no longer function as autonomous hunters. They would be downgraded to ordinary infantry in fortified positions. Their morale collapsed. Meanwhile, news of Jones's tactical breakthrough spread rapidly through the Marine Corps. Reports reached Pearl Harbor and then Washington, where artillery schools immediately incorporated Bofors' ground support doctrine into training programs. Ammunition distribution was adjusted across the Pacific Fleet to prioritize high-explosive rounds. Captain Jones was promoted to major and reassigned to Washington to formalize the new doctrine, while Lieutenant Walker and Sergeant Miller were recognized for pioneering what would become standard practice in future amphibious operations. The success at Peleliu influenced later battles, Okinawa, Iwo Jima, and shaped post-war strategies for helicopter gunships and close air support tactics. American forces across the Pacific felt a surge of confidence knowing sniper threats could now be eliminated with devastating reliability. The Japanese, however, saw in Peleliu a symbol of their shrinking tactical options. Captured documents later revealed how the Bofors bombardment forced them to abandon elevated sniper doctrine completely, shifting to caves and tunnels, defenses that would soon be targeted by flamethrowers, satchel charges, and naval guns. The transformation of anti-aircraft guns into ground support artillery was more than innovation. It was a demonstration of the American philosophy of war: identify the enemy's strength, exploit its weakness, apply overwhelming firepower, and change the battlefield itself. And for the Marines of Captain George Jones's company, battered and bloodied on Peleliu's coral sands, it meant survival. It meant momentum. It meant a way forward through a jungle that had seemed determined to devour them.